Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to rank the Big Brother 28 players based on how I feel they stand in the game as of the end of the week 2 Thursday Live Eviction episode. This week we saw Devins winning HOH, initial nominations of Jason, Lyric, and Melody, Devins winning the veto, replacing Lyric with Rome, and when Jason won the blockbuster, Rome went home. Before I dive in, links in the description to my playlist to catch up on my previous recaps and rankings. If you like the content, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting your own rankings. But let's dive into it. First, we lost Rome this week, the leader of the unnamed other side of the house, unofficially known as Rome's army. It was another week of him not being in power. He started the week off okay. He and Devins were in a good place, but being the leader of the other side, Devins was convinced to work against Rome, and the short list of players he gave not only gave Devins justification, but gave him things to use against Rome in his speech and further create disorganization in his group. His entire week was out of his hands. He was backdoored, and no matter what he said, he was going home if he lost the blockbuster. Had he won the blockbuster, he would have been low on the list, probably not on the bottom, but his gameplay this week was so bad, including his odd campaign pulling all the guys except Jason and Devins into a room for a big meeting, which was a fiasco and then a laughing stock. But had he stayed, he could have recovered. Getting to the rankings, at the end of the episode, we do not know who the week 3 HOH is. So in 15th, I have Yash, who last week was 14th. He survived eviction because he won the blockbuster last week and ends up not nominated, not because he played well, but because he was nominated last week and Devins was feeling merciful. Most head of households wouldn't have been so kind. Throughout the week, he's pretty out of the loop, doesn't do that well getting in the loop. He's often misinformed as to what's going on with the veto and in denial that Rome was getting backdoored. He did have some strategic conversations, bonding mostly with the other guys, but he's not in any real alliances. There are some guy clusters and I guess some guy alliances, none that I feel are real. He's grouped together in this disorganized other side of the house who just lost their leader and could be an easy nominee for a lot of players coming into this week. This week, I would like to see Yash get into a real organized alliance. In 14th, I have Mallory, who last week was 13th. She came into the week in a slightly better place than Yash. She had a little more time after saving herself with the veto to recover socially, and unlike Yash, she's in more nearly official groups. The Littles are pretty much an alliance. I want them to solidify that alliance and call it the Littles. While she's still a bottom feeder in the house, she's getting a steady drip of information from different angles. She has a bubbling alliance with Barrett and a goody enough general idea of what's going on. I'm pretty confident if she wins HOH, she could make good decisions for herself. A Mallory HOH would go crazy right now. In 13th, I have Taylor, who last week was 10th. Taylor survived a unanimous vote week 1, and when Devins wins HOH, she's marked safe for the week because she was nominated already. Does she make the most of it? Not really. She sleeps through most of the week. I watch a lot of feeds and she's rarely there, and when she is, she's not talking intense game. She does eventually get into something with Dee, Angela, and Latrice with the Honor Society. That alliance feels more real than Yash's or Melody's alliances, but it still feels fake and like it'll crumble. Taylor has a lot of potential. She knows what's going on. She gives Latrice some good advice throughout the week, and it's too soon to tell if her vote for Rome was a good game move or a messy mistake. In the end, I wanted to put these 3 at the bottom because they really all should have been nominated. They were spared, and I don't think any of these 3 did the most with the week of safety they were given, and that annoyed me. In 12th, I have Haley, who last week was 16th. She comes into this week a target of many if the other side wins HOH, but a fortunate HOH result meant she was unquestionably safe for the week. She almost won that HOH. Had she won it, it would have been bad for her. She doesn't do too much throughout the week on her own. She's inducted officially into the Tool Shed Alliance. She's one of the most vocal agitators in that group, taunting the other alliance. So I still feel she could easily be nominated this week by anyone on the other side. Maybe not as the target at first, but she could become the target if she's sitting in the chairs. I still feel she's decently disliked by some in the house, but people aren't openly talking about how much they don't like or hate her as much because she's pretty regular in group conversations and has been putting in work. She's not great socially, but strategically she's all right. If she survives a few votes, she could become a much more valuable piece on the board. I can tell that in her head, she's running this game, and she does play hard. Each week that goes by is a week that her being disliked may make her more likely to get kept over another nominee. This week, I'd like to see her somehow somehow work on her relationships with the other side, though I think that's unlikely. In 11th, I have Chuck, who last week was 15th. Chuck was laying so low last week, and this week, Devin's being empowerment, more of the same. He's a chill guy and hasn't yet had to scramble, but he's getting more active in the game talk. He knows what's going on and is working on his relationships outside of his alliance. Of his trio, I think he has the best overall perception from the house at large. This week, I want to see Chuck take some more initiative in the game. It'll be a good judge of his value as a player when he faces some more adversity. And in 10th, I have Melody, who last week was 12th. Melody is in a weird place in the game. She's kind of on the outs, isn't really in an alliance, though of everyone in a similar spot to her, she has a strong grasp on the house dynamics. She goes on the block. It was better for her to get nominated this week than last week. Her relationship with Drew gives her a supporter on the inside, but they're reminding me more of Corey and America than anything else, where Corey knew how much trouble America was in at all times when America had no idea how close she came to going home. On multiple occasions, same for Melody, but I shipped Comerica and I shipped Mellaroo. I was tempted to put Melody under Haley and Chuck in this list because Haley and Chuck haven't nearly been evicted 2 weeks in a row, but Melody stocks are rising. Drew is all about her. He's on the verge of blowing up his own alliance for her. He will absolutely not sacrifice Melody to go to the ends with Kamu, Chuck, and Haley. She's also getting very popular on the outside. She could get a power, especially after we saw her campaign for her life. She and Drew are beloved on social media. Good things may be coming her way. In 9th, I have Jason, who last week was 8th. Jason had that week of safety last week. Did he lay low? No. He created a target for himself with the lies for no reason, getting exposed for them. He comes into this week with Angela chomping at the bit to tell him off, and Devin's aware of his manipulation, so he gets nominated because of his past behavior. But his behavior at the nomination ceremony, blaming Angela for his nomination, was not only really off base, but also unleashed Angela's fury in an argument that I think he lost. Then he goes into hiding for a while and comes out crying and campaigning for himself. He does make a decent campaign that picks up the less that he cried, but no amount of work that he did made up for the fact that if Rome won the blockbuster, he was going home. But he was warming people up. I think he's done his penance for his wrongdoings by being on the block. He really ate that blockbuster, still has a lot of friends in the house, and is probably going to fall into Rome's leadership position with the group. This week, he needs power or to win the secret power. If he wants the Drag Race fans to vote for him, let's bring out Selena and start talking about Ross Matthews. In 8th, I have Latrice, who last week was 7th. She starts the week off on the bottom. She could have even gone on the block, but her ally Rome leaving her off his list accidentally saved her. For so much of these last 2 weeks, she's been floating in the wind in the game, but Dee and Angela took interest in her, forming their alliance, the Honor Society, which is a step in the right direction. She's in an alliance now. I continue to have her higher than others because it just feels like she's going to be there for a long time, but she needs to get herself into a better place in the house structure. In 7th, I have Kamu, who last week was 11th. He is firmly planted in the Toolshed Alliance, and so far, they've been keeping the peace. He's included in a lot of people's plans, but he's so outwardly physical, which will get scarier over time. I find him so boring in general and in gameplay, but he's been pretty careful in his game conversations. He's not playing messy and has a lot of potential considering he's in this big majority alliance and has that strong trio, but his target feels like it's slowly growing, and he makes little comments from time to time that aren't a good look and may get him called out and villainized eventually. In 6th, I have Barrett, who last week was 4th. What is going on with Barrett? He should be in such a good spot right now. He thinks he's playing double agent, but he doesn't actually have close enough bonds on either side to not just be seen as a floater or expendable number to everyone. He has a close bond with Drew, but Drew's loyalties are all over the place, and everyone seems to see exactly what he and Drew are both doing. And I have other concerns. The show itself doesn't seem very interested in showing us Barrett's game. There are rare confessionals, no secret genius commentary, I see no big picture plan, and then he's seemingly genuinely really bad at competitions, which will make people want to work with him less. We saw some game in the episodes in him telling us he wants to jump ship on the Alliance, but what's the plan then? Where do you go from there? He still has so much potential, but he's not taking enough initiative. We've seen so many times under the radar players turn to expendable players quickly. In fifth, I have Devins, who last week was fifth. Devins did not need to win this HOH. He told us he was trying to throw it to Haley, and he should have. That would have let Haley make the enemies this week, but since he failed at throwing, he takes on the responsibility. He declares that last week's nominees would all be safe, which was way too nice. All to create favor with three players who are not very powerful in the game, and he doesn't cash that in throughout the week or make meaningful bonds with these three, except maybe Yash. He gets convinced by Angela to target Rome, which I think is a good plan for the week, but the way he goes about it was messy. Firstly, I get that the odds that Rome would get picked for the veto are low, but I don't think he thought enough about the chance that Rome would win the veto and save Lyric. There was a play there to just nominate them both off the bat, and if he won the veto, to try to convince him to save Lyric with it, telling him she'd go home if he didn't. Then, after backdooring Rome, he really fell for the idea that Rome and Lyric were going to not only not target him, but work with him if he saved Lyric. Give me a break. Why aren't Devin's allies more annoyed that he made a solo deal with Rome and Lyric to protect only himself through this bad deal? He turned down Melody's offer to smooth things over, someone who actually was trying to work with him. In the end, for the most part, it worked out, but I'm not going to put him over Lyric, who tricked him. So in fourth, I have Lyric, who last week was sixth. Not the best week to be Lyric. The other side comes into power. She gets nominated in a play to get her man out of the house, but she came alive after the veto. She's been getting credit, but not enough credit in my opinion for this breakup lie. Rome was a mess all week. She was holding it together for the two of them. Watching the feeds, I believed her flirting with the guys was real. I was like, this girl Lyric is wiling, but she was running a grift. That should not have worked. And it did. She tricked Devins. There is no logical reason she should not have been on the block on Thursday. And despite being played by her, the other players still think she's a weak, dumb, terrible player. That's Lyric's missed. She's got allies, but like I said, they all still think that she's a weak, lost lamb, and she's not. She's the wolf in sheep's clothing. In third, I have Drew, who last week was second. Drew was going to be safe this week no matter what, with his allies in power, and he stayed in a good enough spot. His alliances are all still the same, though Dee and Angela are skeptical of him, and they're pushing him away toward Melody and other options. But while I think Drew is in a similar spot as Barrett, with everyone seeing them playing both sides, Drew is doing it better. No one can really afford to take the shot at Drew, while there are still bigger problems. He's doing the right thing, pushing for Melody to be safe, but he needs to just get into a group with Melody already and start messing things up with other people, because them being on opposite sides of the house just isn't working in the way he would want it to be working, and they just can't quit each other because they are in love. In second, I have Dee, who last week was first. Dee is such a stable player. She doesn't ride the highs too high or the lows too low, which is a great mentality for the game, and I can't see her falling too low on my list, but she had kind of a boring week. She hangs out with Angela and Devins and gossips and chit chats in the bedroom. Her paranoia against Drew and Melody, I think, could cost her votes in the power voting, though she's still very likely to get one soon. The biggest reason I dropped her a little is I think her reads were off this week. She was a bit too into the plan to save Lyric, which, like I said, was just a silly move. In first, I'm putting Angela, who last week was third. She started the week off strong, convincing Devins to target Rome with a quick, passionate, and logical pitch. She lost her power competition, got her costume. Soon after that, had that big fight at the nomination ceremony. The house consensus was that Angela was in the right in that fight, and the attention didn't seem to increase her target. If anything, the costume helped her to make everyone laugh and distract from the Angela outburst. There were more lows. She continues to be very paranoid about Drew in general, but honestly, none of these people are playing well. Everyone has major issues with their game. Based on the fact that no one is talking about targeting Angela soon, they won't speculate that she has powers because of this punishment. She basically controlled Devon's nominations and was the only one of the icons to push back on the Lyric trickery. She's number one for me this week, but I think her side of the house is in for a fall. But in the end, this entire week was Angela's vision, with one minor hiccup because she wanted Lyric on the block instead of Melody, but Rome still goes home. This entire move was right out of Angela's playbook. This is the same woman who backdoored Matt week one when there were 16 players in the game. She's Matt's ender, she's Rome's ender. So those are my rankings for week two. Let me know in the comments what you think. I know you will. These videos bring everybody out with their pitchforks. If you like this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back on Sunday to recap the nominations episode. Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye.